Zilla Blitz has one of the best wargaming channels on YouTube, but I got him to put together a list of his top 10 non-wargames. You'll be surprised at what he chose. Tune in to find out here on Legendary Tactics. All right, welcome, Zilla Blitz. It's so good to have you on the channel. Finally, we got it together.
Yes, we've been planning this for a long time. Thanks so much for having me. This is an honor to be on here, and I know we've talked about this since I think May of last
Oh,
year, so of
probably.
this year. So about
Yes.
7 months ago, we came up with the idea for this. So it's happy
Yes.
to finally get it together over this winter holiday. So
Yeah, absolutely. And so today we're going to do a top 10 for you.
yes, but a
Yeah.
very kind of particular top 10, right? This is we're
Yes.
talked about. I'm doing a top 10 of non-war games.
Which is amazing because you are one of the purest war game guys I know. You love all war games of all kinds. So for you to go kind of off meta or off topic, I think that's awesome. I'm sure people want to.
Yeah, and actually, like I think in terms of what I've been playing, I've got back into board games during the pandemic with war games, and then over the past year now, I'm probably about 50. In terms of what I play, it's about 50% non-war games,
Yeah.
and so I've been just having a fantastic time diving into board gaming in general, and expanded now out. And so culling down this list was actually a little bit challenging. Was
Oh,
no, it was
that's
very
good.
challenging. So
Yeah, awesome. All right. Well, what's your number 10? Let's
number
start it off.
10, I actually have it here with me. I mean, sometimes you'll see people categorize this as a historical game, but Votes for Women from Fort Circle Games.
Yes.
A lot of reasons why I like this one in terms of, background is my non-YouTube background is in education. And I think I call this one a museum in a box. The educational components, the women's battle for suffrage over the course of 100 years or so of U.S. history. It's playable solo, fantastic game. I
Yeah.
like the gameplay, and in particular, its educational elements. You walk away feeling like, wow, I've got a grip on what this was and what happened in U.S. history for this.
Yes, yes, I love Votes for Women. Two things that I really like is number one, Tory Brown focused on non-famous suffragists, like the ones
Yes,
that were a bit off the radar. And the other thing was including those little like certificates and papers in there just for flavor.
and that's like a museum in a box. Like you open it up and you have these little historical artifacts that just pull you into the game and the time period and the gameplay. And it's such a fantastic game. A
Yeah.
great game, especially if you have daughters at home and you want to, kind of connect with them over a historical topic that might really make them feel proud to have been involved with this incredible effort. So
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, great game. Number 9. What have you got?
number 9 is a new one. I just started playing this one about 3. And I should clarify too. These aren't necessarily, these are games that I've played this year. So
Okay.
I'm leaving off some great games that I just haven't played over the past year. And I'm also going by an experience I've had with it. So
Yeah.
I've had a really fun time playing this one. So I might have played it 2 or 3 times, but
Yeah.
it was such a fantastic time that it's on the list. But yeah, number
Okay.
9,
Perfect. Number
um,
9.
Sky Team.
Sky Team.
Have you played Sky
I've
Team?
played it. Yes, I've only played a few times, but I thought it was
Okay.
very clever and very
Yeah, I've played
difficult,
it.
actually.
It's especially because you can't talk to your partner. So
Yes.
right, once the rounds start, you can talk and communicate. So you learn a lot about like how you're thinking on different levels. But yeah, I've introduced
Yeah.
this to my daughter, my wife, and I played a lot on Board Game Arena. Probably played about 24 times now. I really think this is such a clever mechanic, and the whole like canasta like non-communication element to it
Yes.
is really clever, I think. So, and if people aren't familiar with, you're trying to land a plane, and it's 2 of you collaboratively trying to land a plane, and the airports get gradually more and more difficult and challenging because they throw all these different mechanics and challenges in there. And if you fail, you crash. If you succeed, your plane is on the ground. So it
It's a
usually
bit
causes
dark,
some.
but
Well, it's like crashing a plane has never been so much fun, right? It's
yeah.
kind of like, oh well, look at that, we landed in the control tower, probably. We're like, we didn't quite make the airport. Whoops. Okay, sorry everybody.
Yeah. No, that's
But
a
yeah,
great
no, it's
pick.
a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 8,
Number 8 is Wormspan.
Wormspan. Interesting.
Wormspan, yes. So I'm a big fan of Wingspan, and
Yeah.
Wormspan, of course, is the new game out. It's Wingspan with dragons, but I like the increased complexity with this. There's just a little more subtlety to mechanics. It probably doesn't go up higher on my list because I think as you get a number of players, the last round, the turns can go on for quite a while. So there's a little bit more of a wait time in here. But it's Wingspan with dragons. You're building this whole habitat of dragons. The artwork is amazing, and I love the complexity and subtlety of gameplay.
Yeah, now wasn't enough of a change. So if there are Wingspan fans watching, is Wormspan enough of a change to justify that?
Yes, absolutely. I think you
Okay.
need an interest in the topic, right? So some people like, I think there are people who really like birds, right? And
Yeah.
may hear about dragons. They're like, I don't care about dragons. If you're that person, I would probably say stick with Wingspan. But if you like Wingspan and you hear dragons, you're like, oh, cool. And you're looking for something that's a level up more in complexity. There's a number of new mechanics in the game that I think really change the gameplay up. The turns are different. The gameplay feels a lot different. It's Wingspan, but it's got a good a bit of variety and subtlety and differences from the original Wingspan that make it a great addition. So absolutely.
Great. Yeah, no, I haven't tried it yet, but that's it. I like Wingspan. I'd be open to trying Wormspan as well. So that's excellent.
Yeah, yeah, I would recommend it for sure. Yeah.
So I think is that number seven now? I think.
That was number 8. We're up to number
Yeah,
7.
number seven.
Number 7, I don't have. It's a game I played recently. It goes back to Fritz Circle Games' first Monday in October, which is a game about the 200-year history of the Supreme Court. And
Yes,
it's coming to
interesting
Kickstarter.
choice.
It's yeah, yeah. You know, so if and I just put a couple videos up on the channel about this, and it just finished its Kickstarter run, so it's going into production and won't be out for later. But again, going on the idea that I played this game and I had a really good time playing it, and I really liked the gameplay, and it was this year. I'm putting it this year, even though it's not out. So that's my criteria that
Okay,
I'm
that's
building this
fine.
with.
That's fine.
But if you
We'll
asked me
let it
before,
slide. We'll let it slide for you this time.
yeah, yeah. If you said before, it's like, okay, let's play a game about the Supreme Court, or like go to the dentist. That's the kind of analogy I'm looking at. Say, I'm picking the dentist, right? It's like I am not really interested in the Supreme. The gameplay here is outstanding. I think it's just such. You've got so many avenues you can push on to try to get these renown points. You're basically trying to control and orchestrate kind of the legislative history of the United States involved with the Supreme Court. You have these landmark cases come up. You have the actual Supreme Court justices. And what I really like about it, kind of going back to the same thing as Votes for Women, it really brings a lens on U.S. history that so it's not really about, it's about the Supreme Court, but you're learning things like the U.S. Supreme Court, ruling on child labor in the
Yeah.
United States. And you're like, oh my God, that was actually a case could we have child labor? And you think, where were we? So it provides this really interesting lens onto US history as a whole, and the gameplay is outstanding.
Yeah. Now, is it light enough that this would be, because it sounds a bit intimidating for, kind of a casual gamer. Is this something that you would say would be, as long as they have an interest in the history, would be something they could handle?
I mean, it's definitely a more complex game,
Is it?
right?
Okay.
So, I mean, there's two things to add. I think there's two ways to interpret that question. One is, do you need a legal background to play this? Do you need to understand legal history? Absolutely not. The game, I understand the final version is going to have a lot of materials that provide like that same kind of supporting history elements to it.
Yes.
You can play the game just as well if you know nothing about U.S. legal history outside of the basics of like what a Supreme Court is and stuff like that, right? But the game does, I would put it on a wargaming scale, what I use probably a 3 out of 10.
Okay.
So you can learn it in about a half an hour, so
Okay.
it's not a simpler game, like a Sky Team is probably pretty simple.
Yeah.
Wormspan, it's probably on the same level as Wormspan. It's not a really
Okay.
complex game in terms of mechanics and stuff.
Okay. Oh, good to know. All right. Number 6.
Number 6, okay, this is a special family game. Resistance Avalon.
Oh,
There's
nice.
social. Have you
Yeah.
played that one?
I played the original Resistance. I haven't played Avalon because I understand it
Okay.
to be basically the same game, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a number of games that fall into this category. So I'm not necessarily saying this is the best game in this category, but the idea of Avalon, we end up with large groups of people. Like we're going to go to a friend's house tonight and they're going to bring it. I probably had like 10 people have bought this game from playing it together with our family
Yes.
or with different family members and stuff like that. And we end up just shouting at each other for like a
Yes.
half an hour as we play this. It's just insane, calling each other liars, it's like betraying each other. It's just a crazy game that when we have groups over or families over and stuff like that, we always tend to gravitate towards it, and everybody has a marvelous time. So some of my best group memories go back to this game. So we've played it a lot this year too. So.
Yeah. Now you can't go wrong with a hidden trader mechanic, right?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's probably games that does it better, but this is where my experience has been with this category so far, and we just really like it. So,
Yeah.
and I tried to broaden people out, but they're like, no, we're playing Avalon. It's like,
All right, number five.
number five is a recent one I've played over the past 3 months, Eldritch Horror, and
Interesting.
I've played it only solitaire at this point.
Okay.
But you're traveling the world solving mysteries. There's all these horrors that come up. I love the mechanics and the subtleties and just how each game plays out so differently. Some of them are easy, some of them are hard. Depends
Yeah.
on which cat. It's got so much replayability, and I just love the way they've executed the theme. Even though sometimes you can get a game and just like, okay, this is almost impossible with how
Yeah.
hard it's gotten, and like with the way the game plays out, you're like, we're toast. And then other
Yeah.
times you get one's like, wow, that was pretty easy. So there is some
Yeah.
variability in there, but I kind of like that. You just kind of never know what you're going to get, and with all the expansions, there's so much room to play this game.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes those games are fun to because when you do get a game where it hits the sweet spot,
Yeah,
yeah, that's awesome. Oh,
solitaire, I've got more tolerance for if the game, you get one that's really hard or really
yeah.
easy. But if it's a group of people, that might be a little bit tricky, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really love it as solitaire. So,
Yeah. Number
number four,
four. Yeah.
Spirit Island.
Oh, interesting.
Played
I
it for
didn't
the
even
first
think
time
that
as
was
part
big.
of our, yeah, I've played it as part of our work group. And we played it, I think, 3 times earlier in the year. And then I played it a number of times solitaire since then. It reminds me a little bit of Eldritch Horror in that there's a lot of complexity and subtlety, and each character, each
Yes.
force that you take plays completely differently. Games can be completely differently depending on how they play out. But I love just the depth and the idea like, oh my gosh, there's a whole world of this game to
Yes.
explore with all
Yeah.
of the expansions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I always play a few games a year of that, and it's yeah. I usually take one of the basic spirits because to get to the higher levels, you got to really invest some time to learn them.
Oh my gosh, what a cliff there. Yeah.
Yeah,
We played as a work group with some of the beginning ones, the one they say, well, if you're playing the first time, use these. And we did it. It was like, okay, that's great. And then the second time we said, let's try something different. And we were like scratching our heads. It was so challenging to play at that next level.
yeah,
So it's almost like a whole different game in there,
yeah,
which I like. Kind of the historical the wargaming background, the complexity is almost something that we get excited about. It's like, oh,
yeah.
look at how complex this is. This is awesome.
This is great.
This is great. It's like where some people might look at complexity and say, oh my God, back away slowly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, number three.
Number three, you might void this one as being in the category, but okay, so part of it, there's a little backstory. I was gone from board gaming for about 20, 25 years. I mean, we played with the
Oh,
kids and stuff like that in various games, but historical gaming. And so it's been really the last 3.5 years that I've been back. And so I have never played Dungeons and Dragons until about 4 months ago, 3 months ago.
really? Ever?
Never ever had an opportunity. I mean,
Wow.
I've played Dungeons and Dragons role playing games on the PC, right? Like
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate and some of the other games, and a lot of role playing. So I like role playing games, but I've never been with a group of people and played traditional Dungeons and Dragons until I think it was 3 months ago. Absolutely loved it. We had such a good time. And now our work board game group has morphed into that. We're playing a campaign now with one of our guys, one of the people in the group has had experience. And so he's leading us
Yeah.
through a campaign now. Oh my gosh, it's so much fun. Yeah. Have you played a lot then?
I played as a teenager and I haven't really picked it up since. I played it a few times since, but I realized that role playing games in sort of the pure sense is not my bag. I'm much more of I
Right,
need more
right.
structure. I don't know. It can be fun with the
Okay.
right group, but yeah, for me it was just and I love the concept of it and the design. I respect what it does, but it's just
Right.
not my thing, unfortunately. But that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, we've had such a good
How did you
time. And
make
the
it through the
Dungeon Masters,
teenage years without D&D?
I played a lot of sports as a kid. And so
Yeah.
this is going to sound really bad, but like we would make fun of the Dungeons and Dragons.
And
It's like, oh, look at those geeks. It's like that. And then secretly inside of me, it's like kind of like I kind of want to play, but like because you're like it was like I couldn't.
yeah.
I was like socially insecure and like it just so there's probably like you could probably sit down and psychoanalyze all of that,
Oh,
like what's actually
absolutely.
going on in your brain there. So it's probably
Yeah, we'll
embarrassing.
take some time after filming to go to dive deep.
Yeah, that's we don't have to cover that. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Number two.
Number two, it takes us back actually to Wormspan, and I have it here too. We were playing till 12:30 last night. in the morning. Wingspan.
Yes.
This is a classic game. I don't think it would surprise anybody. I know there are people who don't like it at all because there's not a ton of player interaction.
Yeah.
Um, it's a game I've played, and particularly why it's always, I think it's always going to be in a top 10 list for me, is we play it perennially. When our daughter comes back, she's just recently graduated from college. Every time she's home, we play as a father and daughter. And then yesterday, we introduced my son to it, and he will jump into board games occasionally. And as soon as he's done, he's like, I want to play again. And then last night they were out till like 11. They came back and said, hey, you want to play Wingspan? So we played Wingspan till like 12:30 in the morning last night. And my son loves it now too. It's just, we call it our mental health game because you're like putting together this habitat of birds, right?
Yeah.
And we play collaboratively. So we try to help each other out. We like ask each other, like, hey, do you need this card? Because if you need it, I won't take it. Or, hey, I get cherries. Can you get cherry when you have this? So it's just got such a kind of core part in our family, and we just really
Oh
love the
yeah,
game.
yeah. Especially if you just play it for fun and for the time spent together. And it's
Yeah,
just a
yeah.
nice relaxing game.
Yeah, for the first lot, like the first 10 times we played it, we didn't really even pay attention to the points. It's just like, this bird looks cool. I want him in my habitat. It's like, so, end up with like 40 points, but it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know. I had a good time. Yeah.
All right. And Zilla Blitz is number one non-war game.
I've played, I have played this game 100 times this year. This was a game that Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, she has a YouTube
Yeah.
channel and podcast, introduced me to earlier in the year. And interestingly enough, I played this game once physically live with other people. But actually at the DC conference is where I played it live. But I played it 100 times on Board Game Arena. Obsession.
Obsession. I've been hearing such great things about that game.
So good. And it's one of those games where like the topic I'm not incredibly interesting. You're rebuilding a British estate, basically. So you're adding new construction to your estate and holding events and trying to draw in the highest level prestige guests that you can. And everything that you do earns you kind of victory points. And so the one with the most victory points at the end wins the game. And it's fairly competitive because you might both need like the same tile for your thing. And so who takes it, who gets it. And but the balance of available strategies to win connected with the hand that you're dealt, right? So every game you're going to get a different kind of palette of tiles that you're picking from. So a certain type of tile might be available in one game and not in another.
Oh,
You can bring in it's such a subtle and a beautiful game.
wow.
And I feel like I've played 100 times now. I've played in three tournaments now on Board Game Arena as well. I just get lost in this game. It's
That's
so
amazing.
yeah, it's
Oh
absolutely
man, that's when
fantastic.
I'm gonna have to check out. Maybe we'll have to pick it up on Board Game Arena or something like that and have a game because
Yeah,
you gotta show me how to
it's
do it.
an easy game to play with more than one person because you're not going to cripple somebody else's gameplay if you have different levels. So if you want to play on Board Game Arena, happy
Okay.
to play anytime. I've got I think actually I just finished a tournament now, so I played about 6 times in the past week or so, and
Okay. Wow.
it's
Okay.
such a good game. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on board and for today's call. And I was so fascinated to hear what your non top 10 non-war game picks were, because usually we're talking about war games and historical type war games, that kind of thing.
Yes.
So that's great.
Yeah,
That's
and
really great.
you're going to return the favor on my channel very soon here. We're going to look
Absolutely.
at your top 10 war games. So I'm looking
Yes,
forward
absolutely.
to
So for
hearing what
viewers
those are.
who are interested, I'm going to put Zilla Blitz's contact information in the description, so you can check out his channel. And yeah, I mean, if you love historical war games, and maybe even Crunchy Euros coming soon, then Zilla Blitz is one of the best channels out there. So check them out.
Thanks so much for having me on.